Hello, welcome to part 5 in the Godot tutorial series. Don't worry if you see all this happening, all of this stuff that's been added. This is just one of my projects that I'm kind of just showing like where we're going so far with all these tutorials. So don't worry, you're in the right tutorial. So I just moved my setup downstairs so I'll be able to record a lot more without other noise happening. That's why I wasn't able to record as much over the weekend and stuff. It's because a lot of other things were happening upstairs. So now I'll be able to do it downstairs, and we'll be able to do a lot more tutorials, a lot more content more quickly. So that should be good. So basically, and also I got the mouse working. I didn't even know that I had the mouse disabled on OBS, and I just re-enabled it. I'm sorry about that. It is probably really hard to follow along. I'm sorry. It should be a lot easier. I'm hoping to up the quality of my videos further down the road, but for right now, we're just gonna do some of these simple tutorials and go through some stuff. Okay, so this is basically what I have. I have it so you shoot the enemies. You have a little particle effect that happens. This is very rough representation because like the screen shapes a little much and the UI moves with it. And so I was just trying to get down the concept. I wasn't really trying to get I was just trying to roughly get the concept. So we're probably gonna build something a little bit more different that's gonna be better, but for right now this is what we're probably gonna build. So it's basically what we're gonna do. We're also gonna have a reload system in. So in this tutorial, what we're gonna be doing is we are gonna be adding it so our player ship can get destroyed by the enemies. So if it runs into an enemy, it can get destroyed and the game will restart. We're also probably gonna be adding the reload speed in as well. And in the next tutorial, we're probably going to be organizing a couple things, because you can see in our file system, it's all just like in here. We need like folders and stuff, so we can probably organize that a bit. So yeah, that's not really necessary for organizing, but for making the project a lot more manageable, I feel like it's a need for the tutorial series, and I kind of want to show you guys like how to organize things. But for right now, start working on stuff. So let's see where we left off real quick. We have our ship, shoots. You shoot at the enemies and they explode. But when your ship hits an enemy, it doesn't explode. So I'm gonna change some things in the player. So open the player scene. I just hit the open and editor button right here. And we have our player. And right now it's running a kinematic body 2D. The thing about this game is we're not really gonna use let's say we're not really using physics that much. We're just kind of moving sprites. So I don't think we need a kinematic body. Because for the enemies, let me open an enemy. Let's open our enemy 1 scene, not our destroy particles. Close out that. Our enemies, you see, they're a sprite and they have a hitbox. Our player is just a kinematic body, so I'm thinking it's probably gonna be better for the game if we just do it as the sprite. And it should be pretty easy to do. So we're just gonna select the sprite node under the player, right click it, and we're gonna do make scene root. So as you can see, it made the sprite now the top of everything. So the scene root is always the node that controls all the nodes below it. It's the parent node of all of them. So that's how you get, and there's always one root per every scene. Most of the time, there's sometimes exceptions, but right now we're just gonna see most of the time. And I'll just drag out the collision shape from under the player, so I just dragged it out like this. And we don't really need the player kinematic body anymore. I know we have a script attached to this, but when we delete it, it will not delete the script. The script will be just fine. Because the script actually coexists other than the player. It's not directly attached to it. So when you delete the player, it does not delete the script. We're going to rename our sprite to player. enter. And we're going to reattach that script. So I'm going to search for a player script. And you see I have to search for a lot of things because it's just a lot easier to find, but also we need to organize it more so we can make it even easier to find. So I'm going to drag the player.gd script all the way to the player sprite right here. There we go. And our collision shape is kind of mad at us because we don't actually, because the sprite doesn't need the collision shape. It's a node that just is an image, doesn't need the collision. And so it's kind of giving us a warning. It's just like, well, this collision shape's not really going to be used. There's no reason for it to have it in the sprite. So we're going to add in our hitbox. So add a child node, that's our area 2D, so we can detect collisions, because the sprite does not detect the collisions. We're going to rename this area 2D to hitbox. And I'm going to drag the collision shape right under the hitbox. So now we have a way for the player to check collisions, because you remember in area 2D we'll check for if in our area or a physics body is under it or enters it. So that's basically what we're doing. We're setting up the hitbox stuff, and only issue is our can't talk right now. Our script extends to the kinematic body 2D. So it's taking the functions of the kinematic body 2D, which we're now using it in the sprite. So that doesn't really work because we can't take functions from a non-existent node because our player is a sprite. It's not kinematic body 2D anymore. So we're going to get errors if we try to run this. So do extends sprites. So now we get the sprites functions and not these kinematic body 2D's functions. And this will make it so we don't have any errors or anything when we're playing our game. So I'm just going to hit run. The game should run exactly as normal. We have our player, he shoots. There's enemies, it runs exactly like normal. We didn't really need that kinematic body 2D. Excuse me. So now we're going to make it so when the player collides with an enemy, the player explodes like an enemy explodes. So to do that, we have our hitbox. Remember, we need to go to node right next to the inspector in our hitbox, and you want to go to area entered. So now this is the signal that will check if an area enters this node, just like how we check if the enemies are entering the bullet area. So I'm going to connect area entered from the hitbox back to the player, and it's going to create a method called on hitbox area entered, and it's going to make a function. Make sure this is on. We need to make a function. I'm not going to rename this. I'm just going to press connect. Okay, so now we have a function. I'm going to kind of zoom into our code some more. So how do I do that? Does it not like the zoom in? Control plus does not work. Oh, there we go. I was using the wrong one. Numpad 1 does not work for some reason. Maybe I have numlock on. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom into the code some more so you guys can see it a little bit better. That looks fine. So we have it. So we have our function that detects if another area enters our hitbox. So now let's go back into our enemy, and we're going to go to our hitbox, and we're going to go to our group. And we're going to want to set a group of this hitbox so we can detect that as the enemy. Because we don't want to just check for the name of... Because if we just check for the name, it's always going to be hitbox because all of our areas use hitboxes. What you could do is just like get the parent so you can find the enemy and you're like, oh, what's the name of the enemy? The problem is you'd have to check for every single enemy you add in the game, which is very inconsistent. So we're just going to set a group for the hitbox, and we're going to call it enemy. And press add. So now it's under the enemy group. So now we can detect if multiple enemies are under the enemy group instead of checking for multiple enemies' names, which is a lot nicer. Groups are very handy for stuff like that. So I'm going to go back in my player script, and I'm going to remove this pass function with if area dot is underscore in group. Make sure you type this out correctly. It has to be exact or else it won't be able to find the group. If it's in the group enemy, then what we're going to do is we're going to... So first what we're going to do is we're going to destroy our player. as normal. So now the player's gonna get destroyed. We also want to do is area.queueFree. If I could spell Q. Free. I'm having typing issues today. My keyboard's kind of like balanced on the stool. It's kind of hard to type. So basically, the only issue with this is if we do area.queueFree, what's going to happen is it's just going to delete the enemy's hitbox. We're still going to see the enemy because it's a sprite. So that's not really going to work. And so how do we get the node above the hitbox? Well, we're going to use get parent. That's how you get the node above it. You're always going to want to use get parents to get the nodes above it. Whenever you're getting nodes below an object, you can use like find node or something. There's kind of issues with that though. Like sometimes if it's not true, you'll get errors if that node isn't there. And so that's why it's a lot better to use signals. That's why we emit signals to create objects. But we have destroyed the enemy and we have destroyed ourselves. But we need that explosion, or else it's not really that. It's not gonna look that cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna emit another signal. Emit signal. And you can see we have a create bullet signal. And it creates, we'd set the bullet and the location. Well, the bullet could be any node. It's technically, yeah, it's any node, and you can set the location as any location. So why do we create a separate signal for create bullet? Well, I don't know why I did that, and I'm probably going to change it later. But for right now, we're just going to use create bullet so you can see it working. And the bullet we want to create, we actually want to preload now. And it's not a bullet, it's our particles. We're going to preload that. And let's find our particles location. We're just going to use our enemy destroy particles right here. Let me extend this out a bit. I'm just going to use this one. I'm going to copy that location. And I'm pasting it in here. Boop. Oh, and remember you need to do your quotations. So now we want to create, we're calling the signal create bullet. The node we want to create is particles. And the location we want to create is our global position. So at our position, we are creating our particles. So I don't know why I named it create bullet, because technically we could create any node using it. So probably in our next tutorial when we're renaming stuff, I'm going to change all of these signal names like create nodes, so we don't have, like, you can look in our world script. We have all these different like functions checking. Create enemy, destroy particles, create bullet, create enemy, even though they're all carrying the same what node we want to create and what location arguments we want to create. And it's technically all the same code, so I don't know why we have these separate. So we'll change those later. So yes, now we create our particles at our position. So let's try that. Let's save it and then play it. Let's see. That's pretty awesome. But you can see it doesn't restart the game, and we want to restart the game after the particles get destroyed. And so to do that, we're probably going to have to make a separate particle effect for the player, which it could be the same as the enemy destroy particle effect. It can look the exact same. We're just going to have to change the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out. And I am going to duplicate this right here. Our destroy particles, and I'm going to call it player destroy particles. We're duplicating the scene, and it's going to be basically the exact same, yeah, but just as a different scene. And you can see the scene is called player destroy particles, but not the node. So we're going to rename the particle node to player to reflect that name. And we're going to have to use a different script because we don't want to modify the old destroy particle script. We want to create a new one because we're going to restart the game after it's destroyed. So I'm going to remove the script. I'm going to add a new one. Player destroy particles.gd. Press create. Okay, so now we have our script in here. And what we're going to do is we need to reconnect our signal. So go back to timer. because we need that signal function. Why is that showing up? There we go. Sorry about that. We need that signal function of the timer. So select your timer, and we're gonna disconnect it and reconnect it so we can get that function created. I keep minimizing things. Connect, and you want to do on timer timeout. Make sure you make the function connect. Okay, so now that we have this, how are we gonna reload our game? Well, basically, to reload the game, you would use the code getTree.reload current scene. So you get the scene tree of all the scenes and stuff, and we reload the entire thing. And you restart it all. And that should work. We don't really need to destroy the player destroy particles, because the reason is we're gonna restart the game when it would be destroyed, so there's no reason to destroy it, because you wouldn't see it destroy either way. So I'm just gonna hit play. Actually, before we do that, we need to actually create these particles, because we're creating the enemy ones right now, so it's not gonna make a change. So I'm gonna copy the file path of the player destroy particles. Go back in our player, and where we preload it, I'm gonna select this all. Select this all, and Control V, that new path. It should be player destroy particles. I'm saving, and I'm pressing play again. Let's see what happens. Awesome, now it restarts. We're kind of getting another issue though. You can see it's not really an issue, it's more of like a graphical kind of thing where the player slides back down from the top because it starts at the top. Well, we don't really want that every single time we end the game. It's kind of it kind of gets annoying. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make another function for the player at the top. Function underscore ready. So this happens when the player is created. And what we're gonna do is global position equals get. Actually, no, not global position. Global position dot y equals get viewport. We're getting the viewport, and we just get the mouse position dot y. The reason why we're not using the normal position is we don't want to move our X value all the way across the screen to our mouse. We only want to change the Y value. So, yeah, make sure that you're using a .y for the mouse position and the player position, so you're not trying to do set both the X and Y values to a Y value or vice versa. So now it should work. And now you can see as we started the game, it was already at our mouse. Yep, a lot nicer. And we should do reload speed right now. So I'm gonna close out these tabs because I don't really need them. So for the player, we want to reload after like some current amount of time. And by reload, I mean just like a delay between shooting the bullets. So it doesn't like really, so you can't just like, so you're not like cookie clickering it, like where you have it, we have like someone have like a macro or something and like spam the mouse button so it creates like an infinite number of bullets across the screen. We just want it to create a bullet every so often when you're clicking the mouse, so it doesn't like, so you don't create so much bullets, it's just kind of overpowered. So I'm gonna add a child node, timer, and I'm going to rename this to reload timer. Okay, so now we're going to connect the timeout function, which is when the timer goes off, back to our player. Okay, now we need to kind of define a reload timer. So go back into the inspector. We're going to set wait time to like 1/4 of a second. And we're going to have it auto start. And make sure one shot is not turned on, or else it'll only happen once and then not happen again. We want it to keep going. Okay. So now we need a variable that tells the player when it can or can't shoot. So we're going to create some variables up here. Variable can shoot equals false. I mean true. We want the player to be able to shoot at the start. Okay, so when the reload timer goes off, what we want to do is we want to set can shoot equal to true. It's not really going to do anything because we're just setting the variable, but even though when we press the shoot button, it's not really going to depend on the variable to shoot, so it's going to shoot anyways. So what we're going to do is we want to do an AND. So if we are pressing the shoot button and can shoot is true, then we can shoot. But it's still not going to do anything because we're not setting can shoot back to false. We're just saying it to true. So after we shoot, we want to set can shoot equals false. And what we want to, actually we can test it right now, it'll work. If you press play, and now you press, you could try clicking really fast, and you can see you can't shoot as much bullets as fast as you're clicking, which makes sure that you're not like really overpowered. I just clicked off. But yeah, that works pretty well, but you can't really hold down the mouse button. And the reason for that is because we're using isAction just pressed, which only happens for one frame when you're clicking, but it doesn't happen for multiple frames when you're clicking. So this code is not continually being checked or played. It's only happening once. And so if we just do isAction, remove the just, isAction pressed, then that means we can hold down the mouse button and it'll keep checking if you can shoot and to keep emitting the signal if you can. So this will allow you to hold down the mouse button and have it shoot the bullets. You can see if you kind of start it at the right time, you have two bullets kind of start on top of each other. And the reason for that is this timer is always going. It just starts and keeps going. So what we can do is turn off auto start. Now we can set I don't think we need one shot on. So now the timer doesn't start, which doesn't really work if we do it because we'll only be able to shoot once. And what we're going to do is we're going to do $. We're getting the nodes below our node. That's what happens when you do the $, is you're getting the children of the node that has the script. So we're getting our reload timer dot start. So we're getting a reload timer and we're telling it to start the reload speed. And this is basically going to allow us to start it and then stop it once it goes off. So now we can set reload timer to stop. And this will happen so you can't just time it perfectly to create two bullets at once. You'll have to, because the timer won't continually be going. It's kind of confusing, but it will work now that we have it off. So now I can't just see how all the bullets are evenly spaced apart. And we can use randomness to kind of change like your speed in which you're shooting, which is like kind of fun to do. But for right now, we're just gonna have it set as a speed. And this is basically what we're going to do in this tutorial. I hope you guys liked it. Next one, we are going to be doing organization in our project. It's kind of optional, but I would suggest doing it because our project's probably going to look a lot more different when we do the next one. And so I would suggest doing it. If you don't do it, no worries. It'll be like it'll be the same, but you'll have to figure out where everything is, because ours is going to be a bit different. And also our signals are going to be different. So, well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys learned something new.